Okay, hello everybody to our latest talent talk. Thanks very much for coming and joining us again. As always, if you've got any questions or you want to say something nice, is what it is prompting you to do down in the bottom, then please feel free to say something nice. Say something that's not nice, we don't really care. We're going to be taking a look at it anyway. So we've got people who have signed in from the UK, from Holland, from the USA so far. A couple of people I don't know you as well, so I don't know where you are, but welcome. So quick reminder, the Talent Talk is a show where we have somebody that's got a really interesting perspective on recruitment or talent-related matters. I'm just going to ask some questions. It's pretty informal. I would like you to ask any questions you've got as well. And we always start with just a little bit about the person's kind of background, basically talk us through your CV. So I'd like to introduce Joseph Mullings from the Mullings Group, which is a search firm based in the United States, focused on the med tech industry, also working with biotech companies internationally. And so, Joe, first off, can you just tell us a bit about your background? How did you start your career, and how have you got to be running this highly successful company? Just talk us through your CV.
Yeah, great. First of all, thank you so much for having me, Adam, and to anybody who's listening, greatly appreciate it. I've been in the search business since December 4th, 1989. I went to work for somebody for 2 years. For those that are in the U.S. might know the firm Management Recruiters International. Sebastian Lavolsi was my first person who hired me. I went to school for engineering, bachelor's in mechanical engineering from the University of Dayton, Ohio. Spent a few years as an engineer, knew I could not do that, just surrounded with too conservative of a mindset in general. So I left engineering and I went into Sebastian's office one day asking for him to move me into marketing because he was a friend of the family. After about 2 hours of interviewing, he asked me if I ever thought about being a headhunter. I said, no idea what you do. He shared a little bit more. I asked him what his top salesperson made that year. He told me $200,000. I said, I'm in. Little did I know, like most people who enter headhunting, they get in sideways. You didn't go to college for it, at least back in that day.
Yeah.
Usually you're in a transition in life. So I told Sebastian I'd worked for him for 2 years and then opened my own firm. I just knew I was an entrepreneur. He giggled and he said, if you're able to do that, you have made me a lot of money. Good luck. And 2 years and about 3 weeks to the day, Sebastian sent me off with my database to allow me to open up my firm down in Coral Gables, Florida.
That's remarkably collegiate of Sebastian to do that. I don't think that would normally happen. They would normally tell you to F off, and what you told them you were going to do 2 years before doesn't matter. And so Sebastian must have been just a good guy.
Sebastian was one of the most, at least to me, one of the most generous human beings I've ever worked with. Footnote, I had heard 10 years later after I left that he was retiring and closing his business. I called him up and I told him I wanted to buy his business. He said it wasn't for sale because there was nothing to sell. I begged to differ. And I'll just mention I stroked him more than a six-figure check for his business, American, because that's what you're supposed to do. I bought his database. My accountants told me I had to buy something. And that was just the right thing to do. So I got into search because of Sebastian and Bill Joe's, two icons in the management recruiters system. So that's how I did it. And when I opened in Coral Gables, I decided I was only going to work one industry because I knew frequency of contact with the individuals, I don't call them candidates, with individuals is critical to be able to have speed and accuracy to hiring. So that's how it happened.
Okay. I want to come back to this thing about frequency of contact later because That's something that I know you've got some really interesting views on, is contacting, is communication.
Yeah.
So how do you think, having training as an engineer, how do you think the kind of disciplines that you learned from that have helped you within recruitment?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I'm not. So I was always an engineer before I was an engineer. I always looked at things as a process, right? Even as a kid. So I look at the search business, the talent acquisition business, as a manufacturing process, but I look at it like I'm a fine watchmaker. So you still have a supply chain in watchmaking, even IWC, Breitling, Panerai, whatever it is. The finest watchmakers still have a supply chain, and you still have raw materials, which are your individuals and your companies, and you still need skilled craftsmen to put those together, whatever it is. So I look at the search business as a supply chain with a mindset of a fine watchmaker, and the people who work in my factory are incredibly well trained and have areas of expertise that they execute on, and how I fill up my supply chain from a raw material perspective to getting out the finished product to either the individual, meaning the job offer, or to the company, meaning a successful hire, are all done in a supply chain mindset.
Okay, so let's talk about the different aspects of that. If you're treating your company in that way, who is your customer?
Everybody.
Both the employers and the individuals.
Yeah, if you think about it, every hiring manager, so your client, both are your clients. To me, the individuals are more important than the companies, because hiring managers switch companies all the time. So you'll find, for those that are listening that are career search consultants, you'll have Bob or Sally move from company A, B, and C in their career. And if you did them solid, either as the individual, i.e. candidate, or as the hiring manager, they're going to use you. So how do you treat them is critical.
Okay, so in terms of your supply chain, the most in demand is the, okay, so if you have got great candidates who are, people who are interested in job opportunities, and you can find jobs for them. Are the candidates more scarce than the jobs?
So I'm going to offer up a philosophy here that's worked very well for us, and let me just put it in perspective. We're anywhere from a $6 to a $7 million American run rate per year in fees. Just to put context around things, my firm, I think we've done over 95 million in fees just in medtech. Just to put context, so what I'm sharing does work and is not hard to replicate. It's my opinion in the search business that you need to create a following amongst the candidates, i.e. the individuals, based on your expertise in demonstrating that in the public domain. And because of that, because of your following, the companies will come to you because they know that you do lead as a thought leader how individuals should manage their career, how they should approach the market, demonstrating your expertise and depth in an area. I'll give you an example: surgical robotics, interventional cardiology, predictive health, whatever, accounting, whatever your expertise is. If you can demonstrate to the market that they follow you, the clients will call you because you have access to those individuals. That's how we run our business. Most people chase job orders. I never chase a job order. We have not made an outbound marketing call from my firm in probably more than a decade to find a job order. That's the truth.
Yeah. Okay. There's too many things here. I've got to write them down. So, okay. You just said your opinion is that if you build a following among the individuals because of your expertise and what you're kind of talking about in the market, the companies will come to you.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. Let's just dwell on that for a second, because I think this is, I can break down everything you've just said in the last 2 minutes. I can cover all of that in like different chunks. How do you go about building that following? What are the channels, and what are the formats, and what are the techniques, and what are the main things that you need to do in your view to build that following?
So first of all, you've got to become a domain expert. If you're going to be in our business, in our craft, in our profession, I think you need to pursue that aggressively as both a student and a teacher of technology, as well as career enhancement and career development. So there's this little site out there called LinkedIn. And again, I don't work for LinkedIn, and I don't get paid by LinkedIn directly. They pay me extraordinarily well because of our use of it. To me, it is not a job board. And to me, it is not a candidate repository. Yeah. To me, it is the most brilliant marketing tool that TA, talent acquisition, has ever laid at your doorstep for free.
Yeah.
Free.
Yeah.
So as an example, I think you can look at what we do, and if you go to my profile, you'll see that we spend an enormous amount of time in our area of expertise talking about the market relative to medtech. And again, whatever it is, digital surgery, neurovascular, peripheral vascular, structural heart. And what we do is we talk about where is that market, where do we believe it's going, what it means to you as the individual, and then how to take all of those into consideration and then start to follow what we suggest in regards to career enhancement. Now, keep in mind, Adam, this is why I think it's important that the hiring managers follow me. They're individuals. I have placed as many of my hiring managers in their next role as I have non-hiring managers.
Yeah.
So they see us from both sides. Therefore, they know the level of service and the level of expertise they're getting because they've experienced it on both ends. I don't know if that answers your question directly.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent it does. I think if you are working in a specific market like you are, then each individual could be somebody that pays your invoice, or somebody that goes into a job that you've put them into,
or content I put out, or a recommendation. Or this is why I strongly recommend that every single person in search pick a vertical, start with a vertical, and stay in that market, because frequency of contact is key here. And when I say frequency of contact, back in the day, your frequency of contact was a mailed resume. I remember standing at the secretary's desk and waiting for the mail to come in 1989 to get a resume. And then frequency of contact became easier once we started to get email. And then once we started to learn how to work and use voicemail and video and Skype and scalability, that frequency of contact, when you start to work too horizontal of a market, gets diluted. And my firm, I have 12 people on the floor. We touch our industry and individuals on our industry one way or another, either through articles, videos, phone calls, voicemails, texts, 6, 7, 8 times a year.
Yeah.
And as long as you're touching them with really solid content, everybody thinks of touching on a phone call.
Yeah.
That's 1970s recruiting.
Yeah, I think I agree. So okay, so in terms of I think you said there's 2 things there really. Being a domain expert and that kind of stuff around career development and being an authority on how people should run their careers and that kind of thing. I think those 2 things are broadly in line with what I can see from the data from Candidate ID suggests that when people are not in the market for a job opportunity, they still want to find out industry insights, and they still want to find out how to get ahead in their career and the new skills that they need and all that kind of thing. So I can see that is absolutely the right kind of focus. Tell me about how have things changed since 1989? Because I mean, you just said there, the phones maybe not as productive as it maybe was in the past. And privately, you said to me, yes, you can get around town on a horse, but there's better ways of doing things. You actually also said, I said to you, what worked in 1989 doesn't necessarily work now. And you said what worked 2 years ago doesn't necessarily work as well today. So what are the main changes that you've seen happening in recruitment in terms of that contact?
Look, when just 10 years ago, the primary catalyst that you had in the search business was the telephone. Most activities that occurred because of a telephone call, and sure, email, and I'll go back 15 years, whatever it is. But my point is the phone call is no longer the primary catalyst for some sort of movement in the business. I believe the primary catalyst today at scale is using a digital strategy. And that digital strategy doesn't have to be a video camera, just for those that know how much video our firm puts out. I do believe it's a critical one, but it's not the only one. Writing articles, writing micro articles, long form video, short form video, co-branding with clients online, aligning and sharing partnerships online. Those are working 24/7, 365, and can scale out. For those that, I'm an engineer, the phone call is an analog movement. One phone call, one action. When I put out content, or anybody puts out content that's good, is one piece of content scales out almost digitally, meaning tens, thousands, tens of thousands, depending on the quality of it, right? So there's always the content, and then the variable on that is the quality or the creative on the content. So that's really important to understand. The phone call is no longer the primary catalyst at scale. What it does do, though, is you do have to use it once that catalyst is in motion in order to bring that home to deliver that individual and that company together. Those skills have not disappeared, but it's now allowed desks like in my office to average 400,000, 500,000 average billings per year because of the harmonization and understanding of contacting and causing catalyst or movement at scale.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And I think that today, let's just quickly stay on the phone thing. Do you think that people are happy to take an unscheduled call today?
It depends on the relationship you have with the individual, which again comes back to frequency of contact. If I'm an absolute cold call and I'm interrupting your day, no, they don't want that. But if somebody looks down at their phone and says, oh, it's Holly Scott from the Mullings Group, or it's Matt Kaufman from the Mullings Group, they will take that call. It's not an ideal time for them, but because of the gravitas and credibility that you've established on how you dealt with them, the content you put out, how much they know that you understand about their market, they will text you back and go, Gio, can't talk right now. How about 5 p.m.? So I would agree with you. Phone calls are interruptions only if you're playing the old game and you don't understand that they're nothing more than another chess piece in the match. You have text, you have email, and then you have to design your cadence based upon what's best for the individual, not selfishly what's best for you. Because the second you start to serve yourself, you're losing touch with the individual who really is who you need to be in service of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I firmly believe that if you're trying to land your messages with people, you need to understand that everybody's got different preferences for how they want to communicate and digest information. So if you're being really comprehensive, then the content you're putting together, you create it multi-format and you share it in multi-channel. The thing about the telephone is I think it's absolutely, you have to, in recruitment, you have to be good on the phone because you've got to get people from one step to another step. However, it is never the best. I don't think it's almost ever the best first contact that you have with anybody, because I don't think most people want to get that cold call from somebody they have no relationship with. I would agree. Answered my attitude about the phone is I answer the phone every time it rings, because my view is it could be an opportunity. My wife does not answer the phone if she doesn't know who the caller is. And even if she does, she often doesn't answer the phone because she just doesn't like talking on the phone. But I view it as an opportunity every time it rings. However,
you just pointed it out. The phone call being answered is directly related to the value you perceive on the other end of the phone call.
Yeah.
So if they look down and they see, Adam Gordon calling or Joe Mullings calling, and they have that relationship as a high value sort of relationship proposition, even in the middle of a meeting, we've all had it. They're like, oh, excuse me, hold on a second. And you'll walk outside and say, Joe, I'm in the middle of a meeting. Can I call you back? Because there's a direct relationship on the perceived quality of the phone call relationship versus the payoff. So again, it comes back to building that domain expertise and that gravitas for your audience that you're serving.
Yeah. So tell us about, it's a pretty bold attitude. And to say, right, the most important people are the individuals that we might, place. So actually, we're going to focus our attention on them, and customers are going to come to us because of our following. I think that's bold. I think it's really confident, and I think people should be more like that. In order to have that kind of approach, I'm interested to know how you go about structuring the relationships that you have with customers, because you've told me in the past, you and I have spoken in the past, and you've told me there's businesses that pay you a not inconsiderable monthly retainer that isn't even attached to a specific job vacancies. Right. It's just to retain your business as a supplier. So Tell me about how you structure the relationships you have with employers.
Because I view our business as a Ernst & Young of the talent acquisition world. I really do. There's too many headhunters that have entered into this business as a transactional business. And I'm getting the sun here. I'm going to rotate this for a minute. And that didn't make it any better. Hold on. Wow. Okay.
Just as well you hadn't cleared just like one section of your office there for the purposes of this talent talk.
Yeah. By the way, I don't have a private office. I never have in 27 years. So I think it's critical that people view this as a very high-end consultant. My individuals who work with me, the people in my office who work with me, do extraordinarily well because they think that way and the organization is set up that way. And we bring that to our clients, because if we just think of ourselves as transactional, that's the way we behave. So I've got clients that pay us 5 figures plus on a monthly basis to come in and look at what they're proposing for their TA, their talent acquisition strategy. We're going to post this. This is how we plan on putting it out. These are the platforms. That is not a core competency of our clients. And therefore, we provide the opportunity for them to co-source that with us. We give them guidance, and we always explain to them, I will teach you how to do what we're doing, certainly not to the level, but to the point where you can dramatically affect the hires of maybe your hourly labor or your less skilled labor or your internship program or new grads. So, and that comes from putting out the massive content that we put out, because they can see the value there in the strategy. So, that's my short answer on that. And then with that, some of them get a couple hires per month, where we have a client that we charge over $80,000 a month to, and they get a number of hires per month. But also they get us managing their LinkedIn strategy. They get us looking at what their position descriptions are going to look like. We sit in on retention challenges that they're having. We can give them forecast on organizations that might be good targets for them to go after that they hadn't considered. So yeah, we don't look at this as a transactional business at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, and tell me about how do you structure your team? Because Talk to us about how you structure your team, because it's quite an interesting way of doing things.
So here's the process I go through all the time. I service my teammates first, meaning the people who work with me, then the individuals in the marketplace, then the companies. Everything is always done in that order.
Yeah.
Because what I want to do is, first of all, our hiring process here is quite brutal. It's 7 interviews or 7 interactions with our team. Once you finally do get hired here, it's very difficult to lose your job. And what we do is we make sure that the individual is right for our organization, and then we make sure we design their careers here built around the things they're really good at and what our organization could use as a core competency.
Yeah.
Speed to hire on all of our placements is critical. It is not out of the question for us to have 3 search consultants working on a single search. We go at it for 4 or 5 days, super hard on the heavy lifting. Somebody then will take it over after that and manage the candidate flow through the process. And then those teammates are off working on another search. Why is that super important? One is our client gets speed to hire very quickly. Everybody in the business knows time kills all deals. That's number one. But more importantly is my individuals will have anywhere from 6 to 10 job orders open on their desk that they can count on potentially being successful in that month. And it flattens out their earnings, where most search firms are like this, because you're working one job order, one person, humping it out, it doesn't hit. What this builds is collaboration, problem-solving skills, speed to hire. My search consultant make a lot more money in a steady state basis, and they learn a lot more, and it's a lot of cross-functional team building as they continue to develop, and it allows me to train my new search consultants within a village versus them sitting on the side trying to figure it out themselves.
I mean, that's not how a search firm normally works. Normally, a search firm's got one consultant working on each job, and it's going to take a lot longer, and there's a first and a middle and a third stage payment. I wonder how well your model translates outside of the USA. So tell us about, like, you're working internationally, and what do they say in the UK, for example? What do they think about your model here?
I don't care. It works. Look, Adam, it works anytime, but it always comes back to hiring the right people. So here's what happens with a lot of search firms. They end up hiring anybody they can for the littlest amount of money they can pay, right? I've done a lot of consulting for search firms around the world, primarily US, but OUS as well. And so what happens is they'll say here in the US, Joe, I can't retain anybody, or, I'm not getting somebody smart enough. And so there's a couple things there. One is, how much money are you paying? So when you walk into my organization, it's a guaranteed first-year earnings of 6 figures, but you've got to make it through the gauntlet. What that gives me is best athlete.
Yeah.
And if you're running any sports team, football, soccer, basketball, there's a reason why they have combine scores, 40-yard dash, body weight bench, body weight chin-ups, whatever the mechanics are. I want best athlete, because the more time I have to spend off my desk, or my leaders have to spend off their desk training somebody who has no chance at all of being successful, is insane.
Yeah.
So what we do is we hire best athlete. We pay them well. They never have to worry about where they're getting their money for next month. Believe me, they're going to earn it. And I'm okay with it taking the first year for me to get my ROI on the quote unquote commission plan that most search firms put out.
Yeah.
So that allows us to have a dynamically different team in order to execute at a very high level. Look, there's a reason why there's Bud's School in the Navy SEALs, and the reason why those high-end operators can do with 6, 7, or 8 people on their team versus 100.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same mentality here.
Yeah. That's very cool. And tell me, what do you do you plan to diversify at all, or are you going to continue med tech? That's what we do. That's what we're always going to do.
So the answer is no. We're expanding. We've just moved aggressively into an adjacent market, the biotech space. I'm doing some consulting for somebody right now who's in a totally different market by taking these principles, because they all work, but they have to work in harmony with each other. You've got to be, I believe, you've got to be committed to a very large digital strategy. It's not cheap. Intellectually, it's not cheap. Economically, it's not cheap, but it is part of building out at scale very quickly a brand new market or a brand new modality in a marketplace. So we have been working this hard for the last 24 months, and I know, not I believe, I know it transfers to any industry.
Mm. No, it absolutely does. I completely, you could replicate what you're doing and put it into accountancy or legal or management consulting, or there's a whole plethora of different worlds that you could transport your model into. And that's why I wondered about,
yes.
I mean, you must have been tempted over the years to go like multi-sector or multidiscipline, but you haven't done that until now. Why are you diversifying? Because the diversification from med tech to biotech is not like a huge chasm that you're crossing there. But what's tempting? What's triggered you to do it now?
I think it's the confluence of a number of things. I knew I needed to build out our digital strategy first, because as I mentioned earlier, while the phone was a catalyst for the last few decades in search, it's never been less expensive, easier to produce.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean quality, but messaging at scale. Because messaging, and again, I've got the right team now and I've got the right system now. Just because you put a video camera in somebody's hand doesn't mean that they're going to be putting out content that is acceptable and has high value. It's like putting a soccer ball at my foot versus Lionel Messi's foot. The ROI on Lionel's foot is going to be tremendously different on my foot. So we now believe that we can replicate what we've done on our digital side. We've got workflow, we've got processes. We understand the cadence on breaking into new markets. We understand how individuals want to take in content online, and then using the tool of the phone, online, influencing, informing, persuading, facilitating, and then our hiring process this last 18 to 24 months has been a tremendous change, because now we're putting these high-end tools and these high-end investments in capable hands, and it's made all the difference. And it doesn't matter if it's medtech, biotech, accounting, IT, whatever it is.
Well, I know. I think it's remarkable the way that you've positioned this whole digital and communication strategy as being almost the platform for everything that you're doing. And I don't know anybody in your world that's doing things in that kind of focused way. And I love it. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this talent talk with you. Quick question: how is it you know anything about soccer? Because you're American. Is it because you're actually Irish and Polish?
Yeah. So I was a walk-on University of Dayton, Ohio, Division I soccer in 1980, and by my junior year, I was captain, leading the team. So I played D1 ball. I grew up in Hicksville, New York, which is Long Island, which was a hotbed for soccer. I grew up with the soccer ball at my feet more than anything else, and it's a beautiful game.
Yeah. You probably played with George Best then. In that case, was he?
I remember Georgie. Yeah. His last years, he had a lawn chair and a fifth of vodka on the sidelines down here with the Tampa Bay Rowdies burning a cigarette. Yeah. So yeah.
And sorry, one of the question is about you're based in Florida. Is Florida a kind of med tech center, or what? Or do you just love Florida? Why are you based in Florida?
I ended up down here in '92. I had wanted to leave New York at the time. Came down to Coral Gables. My wife at the time was a model for Ford, so we were either going to go to L.A., Miami, or Milan. I wasn't going to L.A., and I had no interest in Milan, so it was Miami. And wrote our last paycheck. I wrote my last check out of my bank account to open up the office down here, and never looked back.
Yeah, very cool. Excellent. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to join our Talent Talk and for sharing, being very, very candid and transparent and sharing, your thoughts on some things that I know the people that have taken part will have joined us will have found really interesting. And so, Joe Mullings, many thanks. Where can people, if they're interested in talking to you, where's the best place to reach you?
You can go to my LinkedIn profile, which is obviously Joe Mullings. Our webpage is mullingsgroup.com. And my email address is joe@mullingsgroup.com. Guys, I will absolutely share every single piece of information I have. I don't hide anything. I give it all away. I will spend time and help you think through your process. I just want to, and I've been rewarded handsomely with this behavior for 56 years, so I'm not going to stop now.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.
Appreciate it.